Frog booth with Martin Wallace. We have a bevy of new games to talk about here. Some with a familiar theme and an old friend. Some I'm not really. Let's start with PI here because this is one that's interesting to me. I think you teased us a little bit last year. You had a deduction game in the works, and I'm having a feeling that this is the one that you might have been still working on at that time.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was going to be a Tree Frog production day because I thought there might be a few other companies out there interested in it. As it happened, that wasn't the case. And also, the game that I had planned on launching, another company really wanted, and they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. That was Tokyo, so as they said they really wanted it, so that's fine. So we thought, okay, well let's put PI out ourselves. So we were fortunate to get a new artist, because my regular artist was really busy. Since he's done Discworld stuff, they love him so much, he's doing endless Discworld stuff. So I don't get a look in, So I phone Peter up and it's like, can you do some work for me? So I'm busy, man, I'm doing another Discworld project. We've got a new guy, Steve Noon, who's done a really wonderful job on capturing this kind of film noir feel that I was really interested in getting. But essentially the game is just Mastermind meets Cluedo. Clue. Okay. The key twist being, normally in Clue, everybody's trying to solve the same crime. In this, everybody's got their own particular crime that they're trying to solve. So when you do ask a question, you get told not only if you're correct, but you also get told if it's close by. So that's the kind of mastermind. So it's like, it's not there, but it is adjacent. And it's that extra layer that gives you kind of extra layer of information that allows you to kind of think, okay, well, if it's adjacent to there and adjacent to there, then the chances are it's going to be either here or here.
Sort of nudges you in a particular direction to play.
And that's really it. So it's a kind of game, the people that have been playtesting said, this is the kind of thing my auntie could play or my grand could play because it's just problem solving. So I don't know really yet how well it's going to do. In that my regular fans might go, well, this isn't the normal kind of Martin Wallace game. It's a bit too simple. Where's the black cubes and the loans? But on the other hand, they might think, well, it's still a good game because you've got to think about what you're doing. It's just that you're thinking more about what you do next rather than thinking about how this rule works and how that rule works. And it's something that you can play with the whole family.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not as though this is the first departure into a realm that's not black cubes and debt. You certainly have a lot of other titles that kind of could fit in that category too.
I suppose it's just the first time. I mean, I've done it with other companies. Okay. It's just the first time doing it. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that hopefully it will work out. But just to reassure people, it doesn't mean I'm not just to reassure you, it means I'm not just doing simple games. I haven't abandoned simple games. There are some more complex games in the pipeline, which for those people who want something really meaty, there will be future games that will keep those people happy. So don't panic. I'm not just doing dumb family games.
I do have to ask, in terms of the development process, I know in terms of those more involved games, the sort of historical research and how that informs the thematic elements in those heavier, more meaty games, does that ring true or hold true with a game like PI in terms of the noirness of what you see on the cover and that? Was there any of that sort of research or development, or is it a contrast when you're working on a game like that isn't part of the development?
I have to be honest here and say that I did almost no research whatsoever on this game.
Fair enough.
However, having said that, it doesn't mean no research was done. It just so happened that a gentleman I go to the pub with regularly, John Ellis, who also gave me the idea for A Few Acres of Snow, he's a massive fan of film noir and pulp fiction. I mean, his house, he's got two types of books in his house. He's got military history and he's got American pulp fiction. And that's it. He's got all the DVDs, all the videos, So I just went to John and said, okay, John, what kind of locations do you find in the stories? What kind of names? What are the characters you find? What he did is he kind of boiled it all down to me so that the elements in here are not kind of picked randomly, they've been picked because they resonate with the period. So those names are there, Forest Drive is there for a reason. It's not just a made-up name, it's because it would be a place that appeared in every film.
The archetypal kind of film noirish kind of thing.
So in that sense, it's actually being researched by somebody who knows what they're talking about.
It's good to have friends. It's good to have friends like that you can.
Hell of a lot.
Let's move on to Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Now this is a deck building game. Is that fair to say?
No,
or how would you describe this in terms of how it fits into that card genre?
It's certainly a card game because it says card game on the cover. I sometimes am influenced by other game designs. It's quite, I played Dominion, and that kind of led to a few Acres of Snow.
Right.
The game that influenced me with Doctor Who was Seven Wonders.
Excellent. Okay.
And I really liked the mechanism of Seven Wonders of cards being passed around. Because it's always a problem. When you're designing a card game, there's always a problem with what do you do when you've got a bad hand.
Right.
It's like, this is all I've got, what can I do with it? I'm stuck with this because I can't play the cards very well, and it's going to take me a while until I get, hopefully, some good cards. So, in Doctor Who, what happens is, you've got a hand of 5 cards, you can do as many actions as you want, but you have to pass 3 cards, leaving yourself with none to the player on your right. That player will already have 2 cards in their hand. So then you pick up 2 cards, and then when the next player's finished their turn, they give you 3 cards. So what happens is, some of the cards rotate around the table. So that means you're getting to see a lot of cards being passed around. It also means, because there are very few bad cards in the game, when you come to play, it's like, okay, I've got 5 cards, I can only play 2, but I've got 3 really good cards. But one of these I'm going to have to give to him or her. And that causes a dilemma. That means you've got to think carefully about what you keep, what you choose to pass on. So that's the core mechanic. Okay. What you're doing in the game is you're playing 2 sides of the good guy and the bad guy. And as the Doctor, you're creating a display of locations in front of you that you want to attack. And you're also sending the bad guy, the enemies, to go and attack other people's locations. So you get to do both. You get to be the good guy and be the bad guy.
In terms of researcher, or are you a Doctor Who fan from long time past, or is this something that...
I certainly grew up watching Doctor Who. I used to watch Doctor Who as a kid, and I certainly, when they rebooted the series, I started watching them. So yeah, I was a fan, am a fan of the series, yeah.
And how did that influence in terms of the design process at all? Did that have any impact on it, do you think? Or?
Somebody approached me, came to me and said, look, can you do a Doctor Who game? And I'd known that there'd been a number of Doctor Who games published in the past, but they'd been aimed very much at very young children. And for gamers, there was nothing there. They were not good games. They were not a game that a gamer could play. That would be they wouldn't be satisfying anymore. Mm-hmm. So my key aim with this, and it was something the BBC, to be fair to them, said they'd gone to this person who knew me and said, look, can you do a Doctor Who game that isn't rubbish? And they were honest about that because they knew the other games, they were just there to sell to kids, and they're not. So they came to me and said, look, would you be interested in doing this? And that, for me, was an interesting challenge because it's not actually an easy thing to design a game on. It's quite hard to design a good game on a TV series because a TV series tends to be, right, we've got 45 minutes that we fill with an isolated story, we do that, and then the next episode is a different story, so it's all very episodic. Whereas games don't work like that. You need continuity, you need the ability to build up a position, you need connections between things. Mm-hmm. So Doctor Who doesn't really lend itself very well to doing a good board game or a good game. So that was the challenge. So really, it was a case of, can I come up with a game that is better than the competition, better than the other ones, and also is got enough in it to keep a gamer happy. So there's some decisions to be made, but it's also accessible to a non-gamer. So somebody who doesn't play games so much can get into the game and understand it. Mm-hmm. So I'm very much like the Discworld game. This for me is another way to try and introduce people to the hobby of gaming.
Yes, invite them in with a game that is accessible, but yet still speaks to the gamer crowd as well. And probably has to pass the litmus test that it has to feel sort of Doctor Who-ish too. That, those fans are so picky in some cases that if it doesn't ring true in some ways, I don't know. Maybe that's not the case, but
yes, I mean it's absolutely true that. You can't just do any old game in the box. What I've tried to capture in the game is the idea of the Doctor who is the defender. And that is brought out in the more recent activity, and that's what you're doing in the game. You're the Doctor, and you are having to defend places against the bad guys. The flavour of the TV series comes out in all the different kind of cards. So, for instance, one I'm really pleased with, there's a Jammy Dodger card in there, which probably means nothing to you. But
it does.
Yeah. So the Jammy Dodger card allows you to defeat any attack. Just as it was in the TV series. So what you've got is different elements from things. You're trying to reflect the theme through the cards. So you've got the Jammy Dodger, you've got K9 in there, you've got the sonic screwdriver that allows you to, when somebody first attacks you, you're not sure who they are, because you never know who the enemy is at the beginning of an episode. So it's halfway through, it's like, oh, it's the Daleks again. I'm so surprised. So in there, when an attack is launched, it's always face down, so you're not quite sure what it is. But if you use a sonic screwdriver, you can see what the attack is, because obviously the sonic screwdriver allows you to open the door that's it's the Daleks. We tried to get as much theme in there as possible.
Well, let's finish up here with Moongha Invaders. Am I saying that correctly?
Probably. It's an Italian word.
This is a game that's having a new life, correct?
Yeah.
People might know it from its old incarnation.
Yeah, this I was asked to design a game a couple of years ago for Play Festival in Modena. And they asked me to base it around these monster characters that they use for their literature. So that was the mission. So I came up with something that, when you're asked to do a short or anything, well, I'll just do something which is just good enough because it's just for the fans. It doesn't need to be great. Okay, you're going to lower the bar a bit. It sounds a bit horrible. You shouldn't do it. But
only human nature.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah. But so I did a game. I thought, this is okay. I think this is good. Okay, sent it over. And the thing is, you never know what the reaction to a game is going to be. And all of a sudden, it's like, wow, we really like this game. It's like, really? Oh, okay. It's the same with Brass. I didn't think Brass was that good. It's my top-rated game, so what do I know? I thought it was okay. I thought it was solid. But so I got on it. No, I love it. It's really good. And getting reviews. And so, because we needed 650, there was demand. At first, I was looking to sell it to another company. There was a couple of companies who were interested, but for one reason or another, like for instance, example, the Italian company Nexus, they were lined up. They were just on the brink of signing a deal for it, but then they went under.
Right.
So that meant. So eventually, I thought, okay, let's think about doing it ourselves. So we actually started on, there was an artist, Tim Huskin, who contacted us saying, are you interested in me doing artwork for new games? So we're thinking about doing Moongha Invaders again. Mm-hmm. And he said, I've already got a copy of that, I really like the game. So he started doing this artwork, I think almost a year ago, quite a long time ago.
We know Tim.
Yeah. And then more recently, some friends, it's basically went over to CooperCon. And there's so many people like Aldi from Board Game Geek saying, have you looked at Kickstarter? And up to then, I'd always seen Kickstarter as something for people who wanted to break into the hobby, who don't have the resources.
Right.
And think, well, okay, that's fine for them. I've got my own games company. I don't need Kickstarter.
Right.
However, when I looked at this, I thought, this is a game that's crying out for plastic pieces. Little plastic miniature monsters, heroes, tanks, the toys. This is getting the toys in that you can play with. And the reality is that means you've got to pay a lot of money to have pieces sculpted, and it's an awful lot of money to have the molds made for the injection molding.
That's really where the major expense is.
That's the major expense. Now, if we were just doing the game for distribution, the game would be $100 or something stupid. And B, we would have a big upfront investment without knowing how many games we're likely to sell. So in that case, it's like, this is not a project you can do, we cannot take this on. So then it's like, so Kickstarter offers a solution to that problem.
Absolutely.
So I would go on Kickstarter with PI.2 because those are games I know we can comfortably produce ourselves. But with this, without Kickstarter, we could not do this game. So that, to my mind, is a legitimate use of crowdsourcing.
For sure.
So the idea is to do the standard game, but with all new artwork by Tim and little plastic pieces. But then I was thinking, well, what do we do? Because it's all about stretch goals and extra stuff. And it's like, I thought, I don't want to do the T-shirts, and I don't want to do the mugs, and the pens, and the signposts, because honestly, I can't be bothered. And I don't think people actually want all of this stuff. The lads are already full of that stuff. What people want is the game. The gamers, they just want the game. So what can we do to improve the game? Well, I don't want to change the basic game. What I thought is, well, we've got these plastic pieces. There's two sides to the ball. Why don't I have another map on the other side of the ball and have a different scenario? So what I've done is designed a two-player version of the game, which is a tactical street fight, heroes versus monsters, fight to the death. It's not subtle, it's not deep, it's just, one side's got machine guns, the other side's got heat rays, and they just want to kill each other. But it works really well. I mean, the design came together incredibly quickly. It's a nice, simple design, but it moves quickly, and you've still got a lot of decision making in it, because there's a card system used to determine what actions you can do. You can do them.
Okay.
And I figure that's the hook, because you will only get, if we get to a certain stretch goal, which I think is $60,000. Don't quote me on that. I keep forgetting that. If we get to that stretch goal, then we'll be able to put a two-player version in the game as well, on the backside. But that will only be available to those people via Kickstarter. Or we're going to have a few extra that we can sell from Essen, but it won't go into distribution. Because one of the issues I think with Kickstarter is people think, well, I'll just wait till it comes out in the shops.
Right.
So it's like, they don't want to invest in something just to get it 2 weeks early. So the case here is, if you want the two-player game, you're going to have to buy the Kickstarter version. So you're going to have to place a Kickstarter, because we will not be publishing that game, we will not be doing that particular two-player game afterwards.
Well, it's a great way to reward your investors, the people who are actually allowing the thing to actually come into existence with something that is special and different that they wouldn't otherwise get to, which I think is smart as well. Now, the campaign, in terms of the campaign, what's the status of the Kickstarter campaign right now?
At this point in time, if we had internet access to the hotel, I could press the button and we'd be go. We just had to change one little, because we've actually used music by an actual real rock band.
To get the rights.
Well, we've got the rights, but they just asked us to add an extra little email link at the bottom, because all they're getting from it is a bit of cross-promotion.
Sure.
So, in theory, we should be able to launch it this weekend. I'm just hoping my web guy got the text message to change today, because of the internet being so then it takes, I think, Kickstarter a couple of days to thing. So it should be up and running next week. But what we're doing is we're running it to the end of November, because I want to give people can find out about the multiplayer version online. They can go to Board Game Geek, they can go to Fortress and Very Trash, and they can see reviews and so on. It's the two-player game. I need to get more information out of it. So I'm going to be getting copies to Board Game Geek. So hopefully people over there can play it, hopefully like it and think, okay, yeah, I've got enough information now to go and watch. I'm becoming a convert. I mean, what I'm hoping to do, I mean, as you know, we're planning to move to New Zealand.
Right.
Now, one of the things we have to do in New Zealand is we have to employ somebody. So for the first time ever, we're actually going to be employing somebody. So if you live in New Zealand, you never know. You never know. But what I'm thinking of doing is employing somebody as a business manager, and then go look into doing more digital stuff. Start looking at converting my games to iPad, Android. That means what I'm hoping to do is find somebody who can manage those projects. So say, okay, right, let's find some people who do the coding for this particular game. Right, this is what you're doing. This is how it's going to look. Okay, you're going to work on this, so that you can have a number of different teams of people working on different projects.
But have a central point.
But have a central point. Yeah, because I'm not very good at that kind of thing. I just want to be off designing the game. So this is why if I can delegate to somebody who can manage those and keep on top of it, then that's great. But what it means is, because one of the things I want to do with this is, if we reach the right level, we're going to do some iPad apps that will kind of add to the game. It's not like you can play it online, but what I'm hoping to do is do a version where it's like, okay, if you've got your Apple tablet with you, you'll be able to play this game semi-blind. So what you do is, you have the board, you've got your tablet, you put in your moves, next person puts in their moves, and the computer will tell you what you can see. Yeah, you're saying, right, okay, put this piece on the board. So it's acting like an umpire.
Right.
So that's like a way to investigate further, learn a little bit more about this new world, because I don't know that much about it. And then can find out a little bit more about that way. Then we can say, right, okay, what other projects can we do? Now at that point, it might be going back to Kickstarter and saying, right, okay, we want to do an app on such and such a game, put it on Kickstarter, because it costs a lot of money to do an app.
Oh, heck yeah.
And it's all upfront investment, and you never know if you're going to get that back. Because everybody expects something for nothing nowadays. It's like if you charge 50 cents for something, it's like you're gouging them.
So true.
So it's way riskier than doing a board game. So at that point, Kickstarter, I think, really works.
That kind of flips the script at that point, because you have a way of kind of testing the market to see if there is the demand for it before you've shelled out that huge sum of money.
So overall, I think, for me, it's positive. I can see how it can be used to help our business.
It seems like this might be the critical mass point, that if it is successful, that it could allow a lot more projects to make it to the light of day than maybe would be otherwise. I mean, the jury's still out, you have to see, but it seems like there's at least that potential is there.
Well, it's certainly doing that at the moment. The problem, though, from conversations I've had is there's good projects and bad projects. And the problem is nobody goes on Kickstarter and says, this game sucks.
Absolutely.
So their game is always wonderful, it's always great. And some of them, from what I've seen, I have to say, some of them look amazing. I have to say, there's some really good stuff out there. But then there are a number of other games, you have to say, well, really it could have done with a bit more professional involvement, a bit more development. But that's the nature of the beast. It's up to the buyer to decide what they want to back and what they don't want to back. I kind of feel our position of strength is that we can guarantee the game will be done, it will be done by a certain time, that we can arrange that the price includes shipping anywhere in the world, because we have the contacts to be able to say, right, okay, Asmodee North America, you're going to send these out. Stevie or somebody, I've got somebody in the UK who's going to send the UK ones out. I've got contacts in Australia, they can send the Australian ones out. So I've got access to those distribution that the individual guy doing it the first time
not even close to that. Yeah.
And we also have the after service case. Like if you have a problem with your game, you can contact us. We can send replacement pieces. We can make sure the product you get is as good as it can be. So that's something that we can do because we're an already established company.
Right, you're not a Johnny-come-lately, you have an established track record, and that speaks for itself. You don't have to say any more than that. You know that that quality just adds to the decision-making process. They know that's part of what they're getting when they're backing you, as opposed to some Joe Bob in his garage producing the next game. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I always enjoy sitting down and talking to you, and there's never a lack of new things to talk about. And it'll be really interesting a year from now to see where we are and what we're talking about, seeing how this is going to affect how things happen with Pre-Prod, I think.
I think, without giving too much away, I've got what you have to do in the games business. It seems to me there's so many games coming out. You're continually having to think, what can you do that's different?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do at the moment. It's okay, what different direction can we go in so that we can do something that the other guys aren't doing? So anyway, but you'll have to wait and see.
We'll wait with bated breath until next year. Thanks so much,
Okay,
Martin.
Thank you. Okay.